Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
It's finally time for you to shout about Owen Green.
Mm-hmm. I'm here. I'm ready. I came prepared.
If you clicked on this episode and you haven't read the title, what we're actually talking about is the AM Archives and Order in Chaos, which are technically seasons 4 and 5 of the Bright Sessions. No, seasons 5 and 6, because we've skipped the bonus episodes between the Bright Sessions and the AM Archives.
Not that we don't love the bonus episodes. There's just no plot.
We just don't feel like we have that much to say about them, except for the fact that we love non-binary people.
Yes.
So, shall I let you start us off on this, or...
I mean, where do I start, Soren?
Where do you start?
Where do I start? I'll start by saying, I have to admit, he's worse than I remember him being. I will say that much. He's slightly worse than I remember him being, especially in the first half of the season. He's great under pressure, and I did sob my eyes out, but he's slightly worse than I remember him being at the beginning.
I feel like he's the way I remember him being.
I just feel like I have to say this because in all the other recordings you've been like,
I don't know, especially on this re-listen, when he's, like, yelling at Jackson and he's like, there's a chain of command here. I'm like, yeah, what, a chain of command established by Wadsworth's promotion of you? So legitimate, Owen. We love that.
Yeah. So I will take the L on that one. However,
go on.
he's my special little meow meow and he's never done anything wrong.
That's fair. I can't argue with that, quite frankly. I have nothing to say to that.
I was trying to explain him to my flatmate. Like, listen, he's just like the most middle management, average white man you've ever met in your life in a grey suit. But also, he's trying so hard. And he's gonna die in the next episode. And she was like, okay, Morgan, you have fun. Like, you don't understand. Picture this, listeners. It's 2019. I'm logged into Soren's Luminary account. He's already listened to all of this. I am on holiday with my family in Canada. We are going on this like lovely sunlit walk up the mountains, and I'm like, I'm just going to listen to my podcast because we're a very unsociable family. And as we're walking down this bloody mountain in the middle of another country on the other side of the ocean, I have to listen to Owen Green die. And I'm just sobbing my eyes out in broad daylight around my family, and then my phone runs out of charge. It's devastating. It's devastating.
That's the worst part of this.
So yeah, so I was permanently traumatized by that episode. I'll die when I'm done. Rent-free.
I remember, because I was listening to it as it came out, and it was the worst job that I've ever worked, and it was when I was continually finishing at about 2 or 3 a.m. and then walking home through central London. And I remember very, very vividly standing, it was Trafalgar Square, it was deserted because it was 3 a.m. on like a Monday. There was nobody there. And the lights changed like 2 or 3 times, and I was just standing, like staring, like I'd forgotten what I was doing. And also, because it was live, I had the cliffhanger from the episode before, which was horrifying. And then I had Lauren Shippen tweeting, I'm sorry for what's about to happen, with no further context. So that was horrifying for everyone involved.
Because it's so, like, early in the episode, comparatively to, like, where you'd expect a death to be.
Yeah, well, because it's like, they leave you on this, like, oh no, Owen got stabbed, is he going to be okay? But because they leave you there, you kind of think that he'll be fine, or he'll hang on for the rest of the episode, but then he kind of just dies at the beginning of the next episode.
Shout out to the actor, because his acting in the scene with Joan, where he's like, I want you to be happy, like, don't forgive me, yada yada, like, oh my god, he's so good.
The horrifying, lung-rattling, punctured breaths. I don't know how he was even doing that.
Jeez, yeah, oh my god.
What a way to choose someone to die in an audio medium.
Right?
What a choice. Correct choice. Horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it had to be something slow so that he could, like, die in her arms, but still.
The way he's, like, slurring his words, and he's, like, muttering and sort of going in and out of consciousness and repeating himself. And Joan's acting as well. When she's screaming.
It's so good, because you've never seen her break down like that before.
And she just keeps interrupting herself to, like, yell down the corridor.
I forgot about Owen's little tangent about Joan's sweater as well, when he's like, oh god, love your sweater, you love that sweater. That got me. I was like, oh no.
And it's such an escalation for the whole world of the Bright Sessions. because you've had Andrea die, but that's sort of quite understated. I feel like it really gets skipped over.
You don't know Andrea as well, unfortunately. It does. You know what was shocked me about it listening again was that Mark and Joan are having their little like conversation together when they're in the ward, and Mark goes, "We've got out of tighter spots before," and I was sitting there like, "No, Mark, somebody died. Like, I know you don't know her, but someone is dead. A woman is dead." Like, if you're referring to Damien, this is not the same thing. Like,
Yeah, like, comparatively.
Damien is basically just like somebody's crazy ex who's crashed the party. Like, I don't want to like underplay him because he is trying to kidnap a child, but still, like, you know, he can kind of be reasoned with. Helen, kind of beyond that point.
And her ability, you cannot fight it. So, you know, you haven't got a convenient Caleb. What are you going to do?
Exactly. I mean, Jackson's quite convenient in terms of going up against Helen, to be fair, so...
I will say I have one bone to pick with Lauren Shippen, and it's the fact that the trope I hate most, I mean, there's a lot of them, but the trope I hate most is when a character dies to complete their redemption arc.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up before I did.
Oh my god, it drives me insane, because it's like, that's not a redemption. That is, you've gotten out of the hard bit. You don't have to make amends, because you've died. So people go, oh, well, we can't speak ill of the dead. Or they go like, oh, well, he gave everything to fix things. It's like, Lauren Shippen, I absolutely love you. But I have this opinion of anybody who does this, is that it's a complete cop-out of that emotional arc, because there's no sticking points. And you can see that there's a lot of sticking points throughout the AM archives of him trying and failing quite often to like get it, even though he is trying to do this redemption arc. It's not easy. It keeps going backwards. It was really interesting as a redemption arc because it wasn't fluid.
Yeah, he was making quite a lot of mistakes despite trying.
And then he just dies.
I completely agree with that. I was thinking, is it not more interesting to leave him alive? Like, very tragic, very, you know, dramatic. But even in terms of, like, as a character, he is so stuck. Because he's like, I can never come back from this. I'm trying to fix this, but I seem to have a really difficult time changing my way of thinking. And I'm in love with Joan, and nothing will ever change that. And I feel like it was just kind of like, I don't know where to bring this character from here, so I'm just going to kill him. As opposed to, let's see what he does when he has to keep going, when he has to live, when he has to get up the next day and see Joan and Jackson maybe start dating and see them become happy and, you know...
Could be so interesting.
At the same time, I'm kind of like, I feel like somebody had to die there.
Yeah, of all the people who could have died, he's the one I care about least. I mean, he's not the one I care about least.
The Owen Green Defence Force, everyone.
Well, no, because, let's be real, you can't kill off Sam.
No.
You can't kill off Joan.
No.
You can't kill off Mark.
No.
That's our core OG characters. You can't kill off Mags.
I guess you could theoretically kill off Wadsworth, but again, I feel like that's a more interesting character to keep alive. She has more utility alive.
Exactly. He makes sense, but there are worse things than death that you can do to a character that are more interesting.
Oh, wow. Fair enough. No, you're not wrong.
I come from the Suffering Games school of traumatizing your characters.
No, I agree with that. I think that's fair. On the subject of Owen making mistakes as he's trying to redeem himself, I just find it really interesting the way he talks about atypicals continually, like the language that he uses, and I think this is something that Shippen does really well, is show non-atypical characters othering atypical characters, like, very subtly. Particularly the way that he engages with Mark still drives me crazy, because he only sees Mark as a facet of Joan, even at this point. Like, he does not feel bad about what Mark has been through on Mark's own merits, really. Like, he says that he does, and I think he does on some level, but at the same time, whenever it comes to, like, a serious situation, he starts referring to him even as Joan Bright's brother. He does not conceive of Mark as his own entity at all.
Yeah.
But, like, even when he's like, oh, you can't do this thing, like, you can't participate in this experimental trial, it's like, well, actually, he is an adult and he has autonomy and he can do that if he wants to do that, actually.
Should he be allowed to?
Should he? No, should he be allowed to? I think arguably yes. You know, Andrea did not explain, she didn't, like, properly walk him through side effects and, you know, this email my lab assistants thing. Absolutely not. That's not how you do scientific testing. But
It's just, it is classic Mark self-destruction. And you're just watching me, I've been like, even if this all went well, you're still going to have nightmares about it because you're back in a chair being tested on in the AM archives.
Could not have gone more badly, quite frankly.
Yeah. Oh, I love the glimpse we get of Helen and Mark's relationship, though.
Yes. Oh my God.
I'm such a sucker for any crumbs of Tier 5 that we get, and it's beautiful.
It's so good. Also, the actor that plays Helen, oh my God.
Oh my, yes, we need to take a moment because she is insanely talented.
So much fun.
She's eating up every moment of audio that she has, switching up the tones.
The shift that she has when she goes from playing, like, fawning patient to revenge obsessed.
Yeah. Her evil laugh is
Oh my God.
unparalleled.
It's so good.
Yeah, and when her and Wadsworth are playing off each other, like, we already know how good that actor is. And then it just gets better.
Can we just have more, like, evil geniuses who are women? Like, evil scientists who are women?
Please.
Evil vengeful obsessed maniacs who are women? I support women's wrongs, etc., etc. I just think
it makes sense.
There is also something so sapphic about the whole Helen, Joan, Wadsworth tangle. It's insane. Like, they say... The AM Archives is where they come out and say that Joan is straight, which is still an insane... I just don't believe it. You don't have that kind of relationship with your boss. If you're a heterosexual, what's wrong with you?
Anyone who interacts with Wadsworth is just a little bit gay. At all times.
Just by being in her proximity. That's her atypical. It just makes everyone near gay.
Is she just like, how you're going to tell me that Helen and Wadsworth were not like vibing? They were not flirting. She was literally listening to like songs that she suggested and they were like being really cute together. And then she's like, you betrayed me, you replaced me with someone new.
The tension between Helen and Wadsworth is insane.
Look me in the eyes, Lauren Shippen. Look me in the eyes and tell me.
I haven't seen Killing Eve, but it feels very Killing Eve. The whole like, oh, I've tried to kill you and now I'm obsessed with you. And also like, I'm sacrificing my freedom. I don't care. All I want is for you to come back so I can be the one to kill you. Like, what is that? Come on.
Like, it would have been so easy for Helen to like just make her way through the like her interview with Joan.
Yeah.
Like, she could have been out there.
And then even forget the interview. Once she's locked Joan in a room, she could have just walked out. Like,
and she just doesn't.
Just leave.
An icon. Truly.
Honestly. But I've completely forgot that when Helen is making her little announcement, which again, very iconic, such panache, love it, over the tannoy, Oliver goes, oh, it'd be kind of sexy if she wasn't so murderous. And I'm like, wow, we're really establishing Oliver's character in a certain way at this point. I was so blindsided by that. Even though I've listened to the AM Archives like 3 or 4 times, I forgot somehow.
I do love Oliver. The little bits we get of him. I love him.
I was so suspicious of Oliver in the AM Archives, so I don't want to go too into how I feel about Oliver.
I remember.
I don't know if you were on my team, but I was so like, I don't trust this man. Particularly after Order and Chaos, because of the little mention of Oliver at the end, I was like, how in on this is he? Because he just sort of goes with Mr. Sandoval with very little hesitation at the end there.
You were out here like chaos theory, string theory, just all together. You were like, maybe he's like the boss of the Order, or he's like really high up in the Order and he's been like spying on them, or he's been doing this, or he's actually really powerful. And I was like, okay, Soren, I agree.
It still doesn't quite make sense to me that he was stuck for so long, given that he's such a talented alchemist, because I'm like, I know that they can do certain things to make your cell somewhat impervious to your abilities, but Oliver's is so specifically transformative that I'm like, all you need is some time alone, all you need is a good distraction. I know that there were guards, I know that people would have stopped him from doing things, but also he's really smart. I just thought he was an inside man. I was like, how did he get in here? And then he's also not... Like, he's like, I want to leave, but he doesn't actually leave. And then he's like, oh, it's because I like you guys. But it's like, you just met these guys. What's wrong with you?
He's in a silly, goofy mood.
You know? Good for him.
I love that for him.
Also, he sees Mark, I guess. I think that might be part of it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this guy who I don't want to take me for Thai, he's here.
Don't take me for Thai. Why would you ever take me for Thai, but just don't take me for Thai?
I forgot that the way that they meet is that Mark, like, smacks him with a IV stand.
As all good relationships should start.
I love that we were like, yeah, Sam and Mark are too trauma bonded and they've been through so much together, and and now we're going to be like, listen, Sam and Mags and Mark and Oliver.
Yeah. It's totally normal.
Totally normal. Even Jackson and Joan.
I have got to say, I don't ship Jackson and Joan. Like, it's just pushed too hard from the beginning.
I want to care about them more than I do, but I really don't. I feel like it's just like everyone who talks to them. It's that thing. This always really bothers me when they're trying to sell you on a ship. So whenever two characters interact, characters around them go, oh! And it's like, hang on, there wasn't actually really anything to pick up there. Like, I didn't actually feel the chemistry. You're just telling me, because via another character, that these two like each other. And it feels very tell not show.
Jackson and Joan are more trauma bonded than anybody out of all of them, I think,
That's
because
true.
they've known each other for, what, like, a couple days by the end of this show?
I think it's been a few weeks, technically.
Has it?
Because the Sydney escape happens, and then there's, like, a few weeks gap.
Okay. Still too fast a turnaround for me, personally.
It's not that long.
You know, you've got Sam and Mags being, like, tentative, like, toes in the water when they've been, like, co-workers for, like, a few months.
Mm.
And, like, then they're, like, we'll look after each other. And that's, like, very open-ended.
Yeah, and also, I feel like they have more natural chemistry. Like, when they're having that little discussion about, like, who to hire, and they have, like, the little banter about, like, oh, he didn't include his headshot. Like, that felt more natural to me.
Whereas Joan and Jackson are just like, you care about me. It's like, okay.
Yeah, Jackson is very much like, you have feelings for me, and it's like, hang on.
This woman has been repressing so much shit.
It's like, I'm not just your co-worker, and it's like, you haven't even hung outside of work.
Like, go get coffee together. Like, take some time, please.
I do love all of the little, like, the patients that we get. It's more towards the beginning, but we have little insights into people, like the force field creator and the person that can walk through walls. I've forgotten both of their names now. It's Cam and Kat, is that it?
I think so, yeah.
They're cute. I love them. I also like the fact that they were like, let's do a character with sign language in an audio medium, because I can imagine those people being like, no, that won't work. And I feel like they did it successfully, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. We love to see it.
And I love that you can actually hear the facial expressions. That sounds weird, but like non-manual signaling is a really big part of American Sign Language. But you can hear the hands movements, and you can kind of hear, like, sometimes your mouth makes a noise when you're just mouthing or making like a over-exaggerated expression, which is part of the language. That's cool.
Whilst we're on our slightly more dissing track, I'm going to say, the whole thing of you can't go to normal hospitals because, like, but then, oh, they're normal burns though, so it's fine. I'm sorry, that's not what we've set up in previous
and they won't
episodes.
do a full checkup on you when you've got like third-degree burn. They will. They will check the rest of you, and then if you're fundamentally different, then we have a problem. But we won't, because you can't possibly be fundamentally different, because you can all interbreed with humans. It's not that different. You've got me on this train, it just doesn't make sense, and it drives me crazy. Even the serum is a little bit like, what's going on? How do we know that it's going to work on everybody else just because it works on Mark, if everything is so fundamentally different? But it is what it is, it's fine.
You could do something interesting of, like, because it works on Mark, it will work on everybody, because Mark is a parallel for everyone's powers.
Exactly, but it's just like, I don't know. Also, they bring up Wadsworth's immunity in this series again, which makes sense because, you know, Helen's here and stuff, and it's consistent. But then they have this whole discussion about the fact that Alex is about to blow up, and it really makes me sit there and wonder, if Alex does blow up, is Wadsworth just fine? Because they haven't explained the parameters.
No, Wadsworth can't do physical abilities. She can only do, like...
Is Helen's ability not physical?
Okay, no. So I've had my thoughts on this one.
Okay,
and
please go ahead.
When she says physical abilities, I think she means, like, sort of like stuff like fire, stuff like is thrown at you.
Frequencies is a physical thing.
Well, yeah, no, but it's like affecting the body. And if the antidote is in her body, then like if you have a fireball thrown at you, like whatever like special stuff you have in your body is not going to like change that, because it's not like a magical effect. Whereas like I feel like frequencies is on the same level as like messing about with your brain.
Yeah, sure, but I feel like there's a very much like a slope. Like if you take like, I don't know, Chloe's ability at one end, and then you move to Helen's ability, and then we do meet electropaths later in this series. Helen and an electropath aren't that different. You can fuck with somebody's nervous system with that. And then Alex is on the other side of an electropath. And also, like, fine, you know, you can't, like, Alex can burn his own cells. Could he theoretically burn somebody else's cells? We don't know where he can start fires. Like, can he start them at a distance? If he started to melt your cells, would that work? Would that not work? It's just, it gets very murky and it's not explained. That's all I'm
Maybe
saying.
she's solved the physical abilities problem since we last saw her.
They didn't say that she would be fine or that she wouldn't be fine, to be fair, either way, but it just made me think about it. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like everything is on a slope.
Yeah. As soon as you introduce physical abilities, you have issues.
I think it's less so the problem is in introducing physical abilities and more so in thinking that the human body is, or the human mind even, is fundamentally removed from outside influences. Like, it's a very, like, closed system view of what a person is, but, like, your skin cells and also your nervous system and all of those things are just affected by, like, even the weather. As two chronically ill people, we know this. Like, it's just... it's all connected. It's just, you know...
I will say regarding Helen's ability, though, I feel like it's safe to say, because of how involved the creators of this are with Marvel, that Helen's ability is a direct commentary on Daisy's ability from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and what it could do if it was actually used correctly. Because she also has frequency power, but in, like, for most of the seasons, it's just, oh, she has earthquakes. She can do earthquakes. Whoa, at one point she flies, but only when she's evil. But in season 2, they're like, yeah, she can, like, create avalanches and she can, like, make water into weird shapes because she can, like, muck up frequencies of things. And then they never really go further than that, and they're just like, oh, it's earthquakes now. And it's like, we are addressing right here how many different things are frequencies.
Exactly.
And that's really cool.
Yeah, I do appreciate that they do really interesting things with that, and everyone underestimates Helen because they're like, oh, radio frequencies, and then she's like manipulating people's voices and causing them pain and imitating people's voices and all of these things. It's very good.
I love when things are taken to that logical conclusion.
See, I love the logic. This is why the Bright Sessions slightly drives me insane as much as I love it, because some things, like, that's so, like, everything to do with Helen's powers in isolation all makes complete sense. And then other things, I'm like, what's going on? And I just have to turn my brain off. But still on gripes, then I do have one thing that I feel like I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
So much of the AM Archives is about this debate that the characters are having of, you know, what is the correct thing to do here in terms of Tier 5. We have these people who are incarcerated and some of them are legitimately dangerous. So what is the next move? And I think that the AM Archives does itself a disservice by refusing to mention the American prison system whatsoever. It's really weird. Like, you can feel that they're talking around it. It's almost like it doesn't exist. Like, occasionally people will bring up the fact that, like, some of these atypicals are incarcerated because they spoke to a tribunal, but it was, like, a small amount of people, because obviously not everybody knows that atypicals exist. And that's why they're now here. And then there's a couple of, you know, people will bring up, like, oh, but shouldn't people have another chance? A lot of people hurt people by accident, like the whole Sam killed her parents by accident, Helen killed some people at a stoplight by accident, and by all accounts that was genuinely an accident, and she did not go into her villain era until she was held prisoner for several years for no reason. But nobody ever talks about any alternative to incarceration. Nobody talks about even therapy, weirdly. Like, you know, there's a lot of scholarship about this, and even that there is, like, a general assumption as well that certain people still do deserve to be in prison, and nobody else is saying, well, hang on a second, is that really true? Is there not more help that we could provide? Kind of thing. I don't know. It feels like a very conspicuous absence, and it also feels like it's a very conspicuous absence in that, especially in the series now where we get, like, Jackson and Mags, like, we're getting more characters of colour. We have Alex, who's Alex Cheng, and we know that he is a character of colour because he's written that way explicitly, that we're not dealing with any of, like, the complexities of this system, and particularly how it treats people of colour, queer people, mentally ill people, people of lower socioeconomic status, all of those things.
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like it misses on that. Like, it feels very obvious.
And it never really actually, like, comes to a resolution. Like, you get the character at the beginning, whose actual character name I can't remember, played by Scotty Shoemaker, incredible actor, really terrifying. But the electropath at the beginning.
Oh, Sydney.
He's just taken off by the Order. We don't know what happens to him.
Precisely, which Also, like, this ignorance thing again, we don't know what the Order are doing with these people, and we're treating them like a solution, and we're having characters debating and being like, well, I think we should just hand them off to the Order, and it's like, I don't know what your position is, because I don't know what the Order is, and you don't know what the Order is. Your position is sweep it under the rug, which is very frustrating as a listener.
We don't really know what happens to Helen. We don't know what happens to the person who turns people out inside out with her body, with her power even. Also, they keep going with Sydney. They keep going, oh, he electrocuted 7 people over this, like, minor thing. And it's like, you're somehow assuming that happened on purpose. Like, okay, he's, like, a terrible person now, but he hasn't seen the sun in 5 years, so it's not surprising. But that's the same as saying that Sam got really angry at her parents because they wouldn't let her do something, and therefore she killed them. Like, why are we assuming that he's inherently guilty on that one?
And quite frankly, even if he is, like, this is not the correct solution, and nobody seems to be saying that. Like, Sam's point at one point is murderers get parole, but again, it is this assumption that, like, the prison system that we have is what should be being applied to these atypicals, and nobody says, hang on a second, maybe that's also not good enough.
It feels like a slightly clumsy, or very clumsy take that never really is like, oh, I need to deal with this thing that I've created.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to, though.
And, like, quite frankly, it seems at times that the characters are not being as intelligent as they are, which is annoying to me. Like, Joan is not talking about psychology, really. Like, I think she even throws around a couple of terms, like psychopath, in sort of incorrect circumstances, which I'm kind of like, on the one hand, she's stressed, but on the other hand, she is a therapist. She wouldn't be doing this. And then there's other instances where, for example, when Oliver's talking about making the serum for them, before he gets out, Sam says, oh, okay, I'll give you, like, whatever you want. And Oliver names, like, a couple of $1,000s, which is not a lot of money, all things considered. You know, to restart your life, you don't have documentation, you have this massive gap in your, what's it called in America? Not a CV, whatever they call it. One of those. Resume. You have a gap in your resume.
To be fair, he does say he can make gold quite easily.
He can make gold quite easily, but, you know, there were presumably other people that they were releasing on Tier 5 who they speak about. Why are they not getting money? Sam is apparently really good at faking ID, and we haven't had a discussion about the fact that, like, there needs to be a reintegration process here, or else you're not doing anything. Like,
We just let them out on a random Tuesday, you know? Have fun.
And it, again, sounds like... And, like, you know how difficult it was for Mark to re-enter society, so you have that personal touchstone, and also you guys aren't stupid. Like, give them some money.
Therapy, support, they need, like, the fact that they haven't seen the sun in however many years, and you're just going to chuck them out in like, broad daylight.
Quite frankly, they're all immunocompromised, so
yeah, they need
something
like,
about that.
24/7 carer, they need, like, just anything to support them.
Yeah, which, like, on the one hand, if you were making a commentary about the characters not doing enough to support them, then that's one thing, but it feels like these characters aren't that stupid. Until they are, and then it's like, well, hang on, why are you doing this? What's going on? And why are you shoving your problems at the Order with no understanding of what it is or does? Because they could be worse than they are. They could be eating these people. You have literally no idea what the Order are doing.
We never really find out. Like, even in Order in Chaos, you're like, I still don't understand what's going on here.
No. I mean, I would say in the whole, I guess, mildly adjacent spoilers, but you still don't find that much out about the Order in College Tapes. Which is frustrating to me, I think. Like, you understand that they are supposed to be overseeing all of the national organisations, but that's... yeah.
Why? Who gave them that job? Are they atypicals? What's going on?
And again, maybe I don't have to know specifically, but it feels like one of the characters should be going, hang on. Like, I feel like Jackson does say, well, hang on, what are you going to do with them? And they go, it'll be alright. And then that's kind of it. I mean, I wonder if it's something that was set up with the intention of paying it off later, and then it just didn't end up being paid off, but...
But we love this show.
As much as I feel like the plot is revolving around this question that it doesn't really feel equipped to answer, individual character arcs are fantastic. And that's always been the case for the Bro Sessions. So, it delivers on that, to me. Everyone is having so much wonderful interpersonal drama.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that we get more of the whole, Green, Joan, Wadsworth trifecta.
Wadsworth and Green, specifically.
Yes.
That relationship is so interesting throughout the whole show. But especially, like, how much she cares, it turns out. That really got to me. That was, like...
phone call.
And then when she finds out that he's dead, and she's genuinely, like, heartbroken, she's like, tell me it's not true. Like, it can't be. Is it true? And she's so soft with Joan afterwards. Bright Green Wadsworth is like, it's like a crack ship of mine, but it's also like, I'm kind of serious.
No, but you're kind of right, though. This is, that phone call and Wadsworth's immediate horrified reaction is so good, but I have to admit that it super threw me off. Even, like, re-listening, this throws me off every single time, in terms of, we have, I can't remember exactly what happens preceding it, but then Sam and Green meet up after Andrea dies, and Green says, oh, she made me call Wadsworth, and blah 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 happened, and Sam says, oh, and I met her in the corridor, but she didn't do anything to me, because she's not looking for me, she's looking for Joan at that point, because she wants to go use Joan for leverage for Wadsworth. But you don't see either of those scenes until later, because Sam later has to be like, oh, I was poking around in her past and all of this information, and you need the reveal later that Wadsworth is on the way, and if you brought that in too early, it would mess up the structure. But every time I listen to it, I'm like, am I on the right episode? Hang on a second, I don't remember any of that happening, because it hasn't happened yet. And the rest of it's chronological, and I feel like, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Does this throw you off, or is it just me?
I don't think it throws me off. I
Fair
think
enough.
the flashbacks are well, like, signposted enough for me. I feel like we have to talk about the music, because the music is something that isn't in the, like, original series, and it just, like, the sound quality and, like, the editing quality and everything just jumps so much in this show already. But the scoring and all the different scenes fucking makes it so well.
It's so cool. I love all the transitionary music between scenes.
Evan Cunningham is so good.
The theme getting slightly more corrupted as it goes on.
I literally, like, I'm one of those people who skips through any possible bit I can, but I listen to the theme every single episode. Because it's just so good. I want, like, can we have, like, an album of just all those tracks, please?
Yeah, they've released all of the musical songs on an album on Spotify. Can we please just have the AM Archive soundtrack?
Like, I just loved it.
It's so... And actually, I mean, we're not talking about it yet, but the College Tapes music is also really good. So...
Like, it just ties it all together. It really elevates it in terms of quality. It really makes, like, for example, Green's death, like, hit so much harder when there's, like, little bits of music underneath it. Like, like, the tone when, like, Helen starts getting evil and you're like, oh, that was a minor chord. What's going on?
Yeah. Ooh.
Oh, love it. Incredible. No notes. Speaking of order and chaos,
Yes.
the Felix Trench jump scare really got me. Like, it's been a while since
I've still not listened to Wooden Overcoat, so I don't know his voice that well. I've only seen the live show with you.
It used to be a thing, like, at PodSoc, at my university, everybody. We have a podcast society, and we do a book club for podcasts. And we always used to be, oh, Felix Trench jump scare. Like, every week we'd be like, where was Felix Trench this week? And it's been, like, years since I've listened to a podcast that I've had, like, a Felix Trench jump scare. And then I was like, hang on a sec. It's that man!
He waited until you were feeling secure.
Yeah, like, there was a time when I could literally recognise his voice, even if he was doing the most insane accent like he does in the Salt Verses. I was like, that's Felix Trench. Now I'm like, oh no, oh gosh.
He's followed me.
I have mixed feelings about Order and Chaos.
Same. I do remember that the first time, and I think, and I will say for people who are listening to it, now, it's in the feed altogether, but if I'm remembering correctly, it wasn't like that on Luminary because they released it, like, in tandem with the AM Archives.
You'd get, like, AM Archives episode, Order episode, AM Archives episode,
Yeah.
Order, and it was really confusing.
It really, it threw me off, and I think it made me just understand it less, because I was forgetting who people were, because they were all new people apart from Lee, and we barely know Lee anyway, and all of this new information.
I slightly don't get the point of it existing.
Yeah, I feel like it actually only exists to establish that artifacts exist, and that, like, other AMs exist, like analogous organizations in other countries exist, and certain political systems are intertwined with the existence of atypicals, which, again, I said it in our previous episodes, and I have to say it for the AM Archives, so much of this feels like it's building to the public knowledge of atypicals, and yet, but I won't labour on it. But yeah, I feel like it's very exposition-y, and they're trying to do something with the whole Percy And, oh no, what's her name?
Mikhail.
Mikhail. Enemies to begrudging friends making out in an egg situation. I don't know. I feel like I'm not invested enough in them because I haven't known them for long enough. And also, it does feel like a little bit of a weird, like, disjointed conflict in that she's like, you got my people kidnapped and held prisoner and used against our will. And he's like, you screwed me out of a promotion. And they both seem to feel equally guilty about it, which is insane.
I didn't feel the, like, enemies to lovers. I did not get that at all.
No.
I do feel like the character work was really well done. I do think Megan Fitzmartin, who wrote the series, she's so good at character work. I love all of her Supernatural episodes. They just understand the characters so much better than a lot of the other Supernatural writers. And I feel like she's very good at sort of, like, hooking you in with, like, little bits of information and little bits of trauma. And then again, the actors are very good at sort of, like, doing that. So I was invested on that side of things. But
love the immortal lesbians just chilling in an egg who just want to make out.
Absolute icons.
Good
love
for
them. Yes.
And I do think the actors do the shift really well when they're doing that possession, non-possession thing. Because again, these characters we don't know that well. But
the way they slightly tip their accents to make them slightly, like, stronger is so good. So good. And the sound design, as always, slaps.
I do feel like... is Percy... I don't know. As a British person, I'm like, I know we're obsessed with tea. I don't know.
Does feel a bit like American person tries to write British person.
A little bit.
Do I agree that you should never microwave tea? Yes.
Yeah, he's correct, but also...
But that's just about it.
Also, is his name Perseus, or does he just really not like Percival? I want to know. I'm curious.
The most important question.
Because he's very insistent that Percival's not his name. Not even don't call me that, just it's not my name. I'm like, is it Perseus? Is it...
It's just Percy.
Persephone? Is it...
Who can say?
Persalia?
Since we're recording this 9 days before Percy Jackson comes out, we will say Perseus.
Do we have anything else to say about Order and Chaos?
Needs more Caleb.
Oh, well, I mean, the AM Archives too, I guess.
Just all of it needs more Caleb.
Do you miss your boy?
I miss my boy.
I do find it really funny when they're updating Jackson on random things. Like, I know that they want Jackson to know everything, just to get people up to speed, and also they're trying to do, like, a, just in case you've just listened to this, because you're, like, a Luminary person and you've never listened to the Bright Sessions before, let me try and give you all of the groundwork that you need. But it's so, like, when Sam is like, oh, go talk to Joan, just don't ask about Mark, hot tip, and Jackson's like, who? And Sam's like, whoops, never mind. I'm like, why would you say...
Everyone's just dropping other people's backstories so hard.
Insane behaviour.
Also, you guys are co-workers now. Like, this is actually, like, it was okay when you guys were friends, like, you're already, like, pushing boundaries, but, like, this is, like, a workspace now. You need to be professional.
Exactly.
Like, even if you're BFFs with your co-workers, especially in an office setting, there's some things you just don't say. Like, in, like, a cafe setting... I can attest, like, all barriers break down. You're having a mental breakdown together.
Well, but Jackson does get to learn some things quite organically, like just Mark's entire deal, because he's just in there while Mark's, like, hyperventilating, which I do love that scene. I just find it really funny.
We love to see Mark having a bad time.
We love to see Mark having a hard time, but I do remember the first time I listened to it, when he was, like, having his little panic attack, and then Jackson calms him down. Which, by the way, this is a running trend in the Bright Sessions of people coming down from panic attacks because people tell them to breathe. What? Hello? I mean, maybe it works for somebody out there, but there are different grounding techniques. Usually, if someone tells you to breathe and you're struggling to breathe, it's just going to stress you out more. But,
yeah,
you know,
I'm like, I'll punch you in the face now, if that's okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm fucking trying, bestie. The lungs are not cooperating.
But it is what it is. But when Jackson has that conversation, and then Mark's like, yeah, and it was my hyperventilation, I was like, mood, because I literally, like, I think I was listening with my dad at this point, because it was earlier on in the series and we were on a trip together, so we were listening in the car, and I think he was like, you were hyperventilating, and I went out loud, well, that was his business. So I guess I'm just in the same headspace there. Nothing to do with you, mate. Maybe I'm just a Londoner. I'm like, continue on.
Yes, carry on. As you do.
Not that I would ignore somebody hyperventilating in public, but if I was hyperventilating in public, I would want people to ignore me. But I don't know. I do like their dynamic, actually.
Brothers-in-law.
you know? They just kind of vibe quite quickly and it's cute. It's fun.
Yeah.
The scene where Joan yells at Mark lives rent-free in my head. This is the most traumatizing part of the AM archives is Joan just screaming at Mark, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I vividly remember listening to that as well because I was in the cheese aisle in a shop. And I was just sort of doing this shrinking in on myself in the cheese aisle and not moving until it was over. Standing staring blindly at the brie.
Please.
Don't yell at him, please. There's enough stress. We don't need this.
They're all just going through it.
They really are. Everyone's trying to leave behind old habits, etc., and they're just making things worse.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, some things are just being made worse by the things that I understand that we needed this whole serum situation so that Oliver could be involved in the plot, but I do find it difficult to believe that Andrea didn't have some elsewhere.
I mean, she was being very secretive about it, to be fair.
That's true, maybe she did and nobody knew. I will take that as an explanation. That's my headcanon now, because... Yeah.
It was just, like, sitting in, like, another fridge, just, like, the entire time.
It was.
And they're like, no! And it's like, it's right there.
She had a note in the front pocket of her lab coat saying, it's actually here, just in case.
If I die, go check.
Oh, God. Also, I do have questions about how Alex works, because I was thinking, at some point, especially once the generator failed because of Sydney, it became clear that he needs round-the-clock care just in case something happens. I'm like, who's the other person that usually supervises Alex, or does Andrea just not sleep?
Great question.
Can we talk about Alex for a second? I know that, like, nobody who's just listened to the AM archives knows who the hell Alex is, apart from a plot device, but I love him. I love him so much.
I don't remember him very well.
I remember.
I'll be honest.
He's my son. That's my son.
Is he in College Tapes?
He's in Neon Darkness.
No, I remember him being in a Neon Darkness, but I read the book so many years ago and it made me so uncomfortable to read, brackets positive, that like, I think I just wiped it from my mind.
That's fair. I just loved him. He was just, he was just trying his best. He was just a little guy. He would just set everything on fire when he became mildly anxious.
I love that for him.
Love that for him. Also, he was kidnapped by a different organisation, which they, like, briefly mentioned here, which becomes relevant, but still...
It's not particularly relevant. It's kind of just like, and then that happened. We're just going to drop that in without reference.
Yeah, they really just mention it really casually here. See, this is the thing that's confusing about this. I feel like certain things you would listen to it and you'd be like, oh, that's clearly set up because they're talking so much about this. And then certain things are like one line and then it's really important in the College Tapes. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the archives. Do we have anything else to say, or should we actually... I'm trying to think if there's anyone we haven't talked about. We haven't really talked about Jackson. And I feel like I'm going to admit that I feel like we haven't talked about Jackson because we both kind of find Jackson kind of boring. He's
kind of like, I'm a knight in shining armour.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a bit audience surrogacy in that it's like we need order to have someone learn all of this information for the first time. And then I feel like there's hints of interest where he like mentions how long he was at the AM and the fact that he was a higher tier and all of that stuff, but it just doesn't really...
Why was he there? How come he knows how to do, like, a sleep grip? Like, these are, like, interesting tidbits.
That's particularly interesting because it's like, he's like, oh, we got different training as atypicals, and it's like, why did you have more aggressive training? That very much implies that, like, the government are using atypicals for warfare, which we kind of know from Frank and ties interestingly into Frank, and particularly ties interestingly to Frank and Jackson, who are both coded as black men in the story, even though it's never explicitly acknowledged, and military experimentation and a real history of that, but it just doesn't really... pay off, I feel like.
I do like his speech at the end, the way it switches from people like you to people like us. I do like that.
I like the people like us and you and them through line. Like, I realised, I think, only this time listening to it, how many times that gets echoed. And I do appreciate that. That's fun. Because it feels natural. It doesn't feel forced. But it's actually in there quite a lot. Also, I feel like I have to shout out to Mags, because I do love Mags. She feels very...
real.
I feel like she feels more real than Jackson because she's more insecure. That feels mean. But because she has this struggle with her power, and because she has this, like, oh no, am I possibly in love with a straight girl? What have I done? Situation going on. And because she's genuinely scared.
The whole scene we get of her trying to give Alex the sedative, it's just her, and she is commanding that whole scene so well, even though you've only been with her for a few episodes. Whereas I feel like Jackson, all of his, like, solo scenes are talking to other characters, or sort of, like, very much sort of, like, bravado.
Yeah.
Whereas you do get this very real side of Mags in a much more interesting way.
Is Jackson just too competent? Is that the problem?
I think we just don't like sort of like action men. You know, he's like arguably the only straight-coded character.
I feel like Jackson could be bisexual. I don't want to be stereotypical here.
I don't know, he feels very sort of like typical action movie star.
Yeah, I think it's that.
And I feel like that's not that. We like the weird little guys.
Gender neutral, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're both very protective of Joan, and we're like, why is this romance happening?
Yeah.
Leave my girl alone. She needs therapy. She doesn't need a boyfriend.
Oh my god, love that line where she's like, I should practice what I preach and go to therapy. And it's like, you haven't been in therapy this entire time. That explains everything.
Isn't it a legal requirement?
I don't think it's a legal requirement if you're an atypical therapist.
It should be.
But also, what would she even talk to her therapist about? Because she can't talk about like 90% of it. She'd have to be like making stuff up and then keeping track of it.
AM therapists should have like a support network.
Yeah, but like with who? Because to begin with, like up until recently, the AM were like our mortal enemies. So
I know, but she should get one now.
And even if she does get a non-atypical therapist, she can be like, I saw someone die. It was bad. Yeah, she doesn't have to necessarily give every detail. I'm sure it would make therapy a little bit more awkward, but I think that there's still possible merit, even if you have to lie about some things or like make up.
My brother was kidnapped for 5 years.
Yes.
I put my entire life on hold.
And my parents don't like him because he's bisexual? I forgot that Mark does not quit his job, he just leaves.
He's just gone.
Good God, sir. Also, I thought that it was longer between the Bright sessions. I do feel a little bit like I've been a bit harsh on them in the past, in that I was always like, why have they taken so long to clear Tier 5? It was their first item on the agenda. And I will say that there's this weird thing of like, we're clearing Tier 5, and then there's this big moment where Green says, okay, we're clearing Tier 5, and I'm like, this wasn't a discussion. This wasn't like we're not making the decision now. We were always going to do this. It was just how we're going about it, you know? And I'm like, and then why did it take you so long if you don't have any prep for, you know, money, ID, rehabilitation, re-entry into society? Why is it taking you guys so long? At the beginning, they say that Mark is due back in 2 months, and at the end of the Bright sessions, they say that he's going to be gone for 3, and then he gets back like a month early, so it has not been that long in their defense, but still.
Yeah.
The timeline was driving me. I was like, whoa, okay, I've got all of this wrong.
I feel like they needed more time.
And then I feel like it would have been a more credible, like, oh no, we should have sorted this by now, but we haven't.
Like, when in the year is this set? Is it set before or after Caleb's internship?
Yeah, no, it's before, because doesn't he do the internship the same summer that Adam is in London? And that's like a year into uni or something for them.
Yeah, because at the end of the Bright sessions, he talks about doing an internship that summer. But I don't think he ever does that.
Presumably Joan sticks her nose into the air and goes, I'm not putting Caleb into this situation yet.
I would have liked a one-off line to be like, yeah, we didn't do that, actually.
Yeah.
Because that threw me off when I was listening to Bright sessions, and I was like, hang on, so that internship was actually way earlier.
Shall we give our final thoughts on the AM archives?
Yes.
Do you want to go first?
I liked it. I love it. I think it is my least favourite of the 3.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Arguably. They're all very good, but I think AM Archives misses the mark slightly on what it's trying to do. And I think there's too many new characters. I say as if the College Tapes is not literally set in a different city. But the point being, it slightly misses me. But I love the sound design, I love the music, I love the acting, I love Helen. I mean, brackets, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Listen, I feel like I can love Helen pretty unabashedly, because she didn't, she just made one mistake and then she was imprisoned for 10 years, you know? I'm like, at that point, do what you're gonna do, girl. Stab someone with a scalpel. That's really on everybody else.
If Mark went off the rails, I would support him as well. If Oliver went off the rails, I'd support him as well.
Exactly. Was Oliver ever on the rails? I love him. This is said with love and respect. Oliver's just doing whatever he's doing. There's no rail for Oliver.
Autistic king. We love him. I feel like from the amount we see him, it's really hard to explain how much we're invested in him.
Because I didn't love him. I feel like I sound... Because genuinely, with the AM Archives alone, I did not, because I was just so suspicious of him. I was like, I don't. And now I have to be like, listen. Just hear him out.
That's my boy.
Just hang on. That's my boy. Now that I know.
What are your final thoughts?
I also like the AM Archives a lot. I think it's really brave to basically do, such a huge genre shift, because this is a genre shift. This is thriller action with a little bit of horror, and they execute on it so well, particularly in sustaining the tension for that many episodes. And I can attest that it's not just if you binge it. Like, I was thinking about it for weeks. It was constantly on my mind, like, what's going to happen next week in the AM archives, and oh my god. And, you know, I was immediately back into that, like, place of tension every time I re-listened to it. So I think it's really successful on that front, and I think it's very successful on the character writing front. And then I think it falls down a bit when it's trying to get into, not necessarily philosophy, but just dig into the themes that it sort of accidentally stumbled into with the setup from the Bright Sessions. I think that's when it sort of trips a little bit. But it's still so good.
It's definitely the best execution I've ever seen of action and movement in a podcast, because that is such a hard thing to convey in an audio medium. And speaking from the attic monologues, absolute bloody nightmare to try and do fight scenes in an audio medium. Literally disgusting process. And I wasn't even the one doing the editing, but it was just horrible. So to have done it so successfully is crazy. Like, you can visualize a lot of what's happening.
Yeah, they do a beautiful job in, like, just making sure that you completely have a grasp of, like, what Jackson's super speed sounds like, so that when he super speeds up to Helen and injects her, you know exactly what's happening.
Is there slightly too much, like, this gun in my right hand is loaded? Yes. But I will forgive them. It's mainly early on.
Yeah.
Slightly too much, but it's fine. I'll forgive them because it's hard to pull off.
Exactly.
For context, for anybody who's listening, this gun in my right hand is loaded is a bit that some radio did. I don't know actually the history
I'll look
very
it
well,
up.
but it's basically a radio 20-minute piece of just like all the mistakes that you shouldn't do in writing a radio script, and one of them is over describing what is happening. So, for example, when somebody bursts into a room, they go, "Hey, look, this gun in my right hand is loaded." So you know that they have a gun, it's in their right hand, and it's loaded. And, like, you need to be able to write that into the context rather than just writing it into the speech. And so it's become shorthand for over description through speech in audio drama.
It's a radio play by Timothy West, made in the 1960s, and he was particularly commenting on the fact that a lot of failed TV writers were turning to radio and not adapting well. And you can listen to it for free online, so we will link it in the show notes for sure.
It is slightly still an issue in the audio drama community, but I will not get into that.
I mean, I think it's a sin that basically any audio drama creator has committed once or twice.
Yeah. I think especially once you've listened to it and once you know, it can get really frustrating if you see somebody who's, like, especially in, like, beginning episodes, sort of working that out. And, like, I've definitely done it, but, oh boy. It just grates on you the more you know about it.
Yeah. But I feel like this is fairly successful. Sometimes there is a little bit of, like, oh, I'm definitely putting this piece of dialogue in. Like, if you're thinking about it from a craft point of view, which is hard for us not to do, you're thinking, oh yeah, like, you know, Joan being like, put down the scalpel is definitely, we need to establish that Helen is holding a scalpel, but at the same time it's also a very credible thing to say when someone is waving a scalpel at you.
I think it was, like, a marked increase from the Bright Sessions, so that I just noticed it more, because I'm like, I know these characters, this is not how they speak, which obviously, I'm not their writer, they can speak however they want, but, yeah. And also, like, most listeners are not going to notice if they're being slightly more audio-descriptive. It's just, when you live and breathe audio drama, unfortunately, it gets into your brain and infects everything you do, which is really annoying sometimes, because it really destroys your enjoyment.
Yeah, sometimes you're just trying to chill.
Yeah, I've noticed this in books, especially. I've, like, noticed a significant increase in my inability to read a book without deconstructing it. I'm
like this with everything, like films and books and TV shows, and I do find it really annoying. Like, I sit there and I'm like, oh, I know where this is going because I can feel it from the structure. Like, this is always the thing that annoys me. Like, people will often say when I talk about mysteries or when I watch a film with someone, I'll just be like, oh, it's him. And they'll be like, how do you know that? You should be a detective. And I'm like, I shouldn't be a detective. The only reason I know that is because of camera cuts and dialogue and things like that. That's why I'm picking up on it. I would not be picking up on this in real fucking life. I would be picking up on shit. I'm picking up on it from I'm writing it in my brain point of view at the same time, and I'm thinking about how I would write it, and I can't turn that part of my brain off and absorb into the media. And sometimes you just want to read, or you just want to...
Exactly. I don't want to be I don't want to be able to see the lattice work of the story. And that is all I can see now. And it is so annoying.
So that's why we're cancelling the Hidden Book. No. Sometimes I like seeing the lattice work, but I wish I could turn the ability on and off. That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I can appreciate a good construction of lattice work.
That's true, and you can't if you can't see it, so...
But when it's badly written lattice work, I start wanting to violently die. Because I'm like, anybody else would enjoy this book. I can see the craft issues.
Yeah. But
it's an enjoyable read. Drives me insane.
Speaking of craft... No, this is a really bad segue. Morgan, what do you recommend for people that love the AM archives? What gives you the same fear or emotions or...
I really don't know.
To be fair, we're not very actiony and thrillery people in general, so I feel like that kind of makes this difficult for us.
Like, the closest thing I can do to, like, I can do some action movies that I've enjoyed.
I'm actually going to throw out one that we recommend every bloody time. The Locked Tomb, Gideon the Ninth, feels like this in that it's that, like, locked room serial killer situation kind of thing. Like, there's a mystery and you're trapped, and the tension is very high, and you're trying to put the pieces together, and you have a big ensemble cast of diverse characters. In that way, I feel like I could justify recommending Gideon the Ninth in connection to the AM archives. Is this a reach?
Maybe.
I just feel like it gave me similar emotions, like, you know, them all being trapped in a room being like, oh my god, we don't know where Helen is, versus, like, Gideon being trapped in a room with Jean-Marie and being like, oh my god, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Devastating.
The claustrophobia. You can always recommend films, to be fair. That's allowed.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have, like, a weird taste in films where I like fantasy and sci-fi films, and then I like action films that are so unrealistic they're basically fantasy. Like, I'm a big fan of a classic, like, Ryan Reynolds action movie.
Yeah.
Which is just very out there if you know me personally, I think. Okay, this is, like, just a complete reach, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you did like the Jackson-Joan dynamic, then Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher is a really cute, cozy fantasy romance. It's not particularly cozy, but we're going to call it cozy.
It's cozy by Morgan standards. Take that as you will.
Yeah. Mainly for the love interest is quite, I feel like, Jackson-coded. The main character is not particularly Joan-coded, but I love her with all my heart. She is a widow and a housewife. She's, like, middle-aged. She's been looking after this, like, sick guy for a while, and he's died, and he's left everything to her. And his family all go, she's, like, stolen the will, she's manipulated him, and they've locked her in a room, and they're like, you can't leave this room until you agree to marry this, like, random man who's got sweaty palms. And she's like, no thank you. And she, like, pulls out this sword to be like, right, I'm going to kill myself. And the sword has a enchanted man inside it who has been locked there for his crimes. And he has to bust her out. And he's very chivalrous and very proper. And she's very much like, nobody cares about me. I'm just an old ditzy housewife. But I'm also very good at disguising my cleverness with just rambling like a crazy person. And it's very cute. And they've got this long, like, journey they have to go through. And they're joined by a non-binary priest who's an absolute icon. Literally love them. And it's just very good and very cute. So, and it's being traditionally published officially in, like, 2025, which is why I read it. And then I was like, oh my god, this is actually really good. So I'm slowly but surely no longer beating the romantasy allegations, but here we are.
Join me, Morgan.
No!
Join me.
No!
I'm going to make you read A Taste of Golden Iron and it'll all be over for you, I promise.
Yeah, but that's gay and that's fine.
I actually have a film recommendation, shocking everybody on the planet. And I feel like this asks similar interesting questions about freedom and research and things that the AM Archives kind of dances around. And that's The Old Guard, which came out in 2020 and is an adaptation of the comics by the same name and is about a group of immortals who... What are they doing? They're kind of just vibing. And then someone else, there's, like, another new immortal who pops up and sort of joins their little weird found family. And then they're trying to stay ahead of some people who are trying to kidnap them and experiment on them for reasons that I believe are unknown at the start of the film, so I won't say what they are. But it's similar as well in that it's also extremely, like, high octane. Like, I feel like The Old Guard does not stop. I have not seen it in a very long time because I watched it, like, once when it came out, but it made an impression on me. So
I'm just going to put this out there because this is all I can get in my brain. The Maze Runner movies.
Ooh.
Yeah, specifically the movies. Don't read the books, don't bother. But yeah, that's sort of like very high octane, very thrillery, very we're running around and what's real and what's not real. Are we being manipulated right now? It's just, it's very, very good. Love it. And also Love and Monsters, which is the other Dylan O'Brien movie that I love. That is weirdly a comfort movie, which is just very sort of like action, adventure, found family, very much sort of like what you believe should be questioned. Not everything is as it seems. And also, random man is told that he will die if he does this thing, and he goes, how about I do it anyway? And then he does. And I love that for him. He's an icon. We just love Dylan O'Brien looking minorly pathetic.
He always looks pathetic, though.
But it's such a good look. I feel like Wolf 359.
You know, I was thinking about Wolf 359 while we were talking, and I didn't even know why. But I will say that it does action scenes so well, and I feel like it never does The Gun in My Right Hand Is Loaded.
Action scenes very well. Lots of philosophical discussion of many different things.
Yeah, lots of interesting ultimatums.
Lots of good character conflict, which comes from how would we deal with the situation? Oh, very differently.
Yeah,
Whoops.
And also I think the claustrophobia that permeates the AM archives is obviously very present in Wolf 359 because they are trapped on the space station. So,
yep, that'll do it.
Are Wadsworth and Kepler kind of shaking hands as well, a little bit?
Yes. I feel like also if you're looking at that sort of morality question, like the later seasons of the Magnus archives are very good for sort of like, we have actively created this situation, how do we change it?
And also because we're assuming that everyone knows everything about podcasts, Wolf 359 is starts off as a comedy podcast. I don't know what genre to call it. It's a science fiction podcast about some people on a space station, mainly centered arguably around the communications officer who is scanning the stars for extraterrestrial life, seemingly with no luck. Wink wink. And
Space opera.
And the Magnus Archives is a
podcast distributed under a 4.0 Creative Commons Attribution License. Continue, sorry.
I don't know how to say all about it. The Magnus Archives is
it's an office comedy.
An anthology-ish with a meta plot that comes in eventually. Believe me, it's there.
I promise you.
With seemingly disjointed horror stories being read by a sad British man. I don't know what else.
Yeah.
So if you like Percy and you want more sad British men. Okay. Is that it for today?
Yeah, next time we're doing the college tapes.
Woo! And we will try and capture the complete insanity of the experience of us listening to the college tapes for the first time, which we did do together, and it was crazy.
Until then, you're always welcome through the bookcase.
Don't forget to scratch the cat on your way out.